So many of you know me as the grants person because I managed the grants for the agency for many, many years. And and I haven't done that in the last couple years. And so Ashley now is our grants and marketing coordinator because after COVID, everyone has more jobs and we have less people working. So, all right. So whenever you want to start, Ashley.
Okay, I'm still admitting some people, and we have about 22 here
Okay.
out of like about 70 that's supposed to come through, but I can go ahead and get started and just
Okay.
keep admitting people in as they
Yeah,
come.
we're going to tape this and we're going to post it on our website. So if you know anyone who wants more information, you can always email Ashley or send them to our website.
Mhm. Okay, let me show the screen. Okay, thank you guys so much for joining us today. So we're gonna go ahead and just give some information about the Project Grants program, like Jocelyn mentioned earlier. It is a little different. It used to be the Decentralized Arts Funding Program, also known as DAF, but the state has made some changes to the program. So, oh wait, let me go back. So I want to go ahead and just start with the timeline here, just to kind of give you an idea on how things are going to go. So applications are currently open right now. They're going to be open until August 31st. After the applications close, we're going to have panel groups review the applications. It's going to be 3 kinds of panel groups, one for more of the visual arts. I didn't even write this down. I'll send it to you guys later, but one's like an arts education panel. One has like the music, multidisciplinary, and then the other group is like visual and performance.
Yeah, and I can give more information on that. But Ashley, before we go into the timeline, and since Erica's on the phone, Erica, can you give us, so one thing that's different in these guidelines is that you want to support kind of new projects. The guideline says that you can apply for like a part of a program that's part of your ongoing, let's see, programming associated with the organization regular programmatic schedule. And it says in the guidelines, we're honing in on community needs and impact that an incredible cool arts project can have. We want to see creativity. We want to see you shake it up, target new populations, take risk, and collaborate with other parishes, organizations, and institutions. Erica, can you give us a little background on how the state developed that focus?
Yeah, sure. So with the DAF program, there were several categories at one point, and then it dwindled down to providing operating support as well as project assistance. And so that's one of the things that moving from DAF to Louisiana project grants, it does away with the organizational support and it hones in on just projects. So these are meant to be grants that support a specific project. And so there's that wording in there to differentiate between supporting a project and supporting the regular programming of an arts organization, whereas that's more probably operating support. And we do have a general operating support grant opportunity through the Division of the Arts. So this pot of money is specifically now for supporting arts projects in each region of the state. And so along with that, and doing away with those parish boundaries, there is an opportunity to cross parish lines and create a collaboration that wasn't there before to do a project between organizations and parishes. But that's not a requirement. It's just a possibility now that wasn't there before. So hopefully that kind of clarifies that a little bit.
Okay, so we have a question from someone who said, so the fund can support existing projects.
The funds can support existing projects. The only thing is we just want to get away from, with DAF, it ended up in some regions, there being a lot of repeat projects, you know, requested year after year, kind of like a cookie cutter proposal. And so that's just something that we want to try to shake up and get away from. But if there is a project that takes place on an annual basis, but it's not necessarily the same providers of service or performers, there's something that changes year to year, maybe it's the target audience, and it's not part of the regular programming of the organization, then yeah, that could be eligible.
Okay. So what, Erica, I have a question. So what if it's an organization and it's a small community-based organization and they do, say, an African dance concert every year, but their budget is about $10,000 a year, but that's what they do. That's their focus. That's the one thing they do. They're really a small organization. Can they apply for that project again?
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky. I think that there are other components to that project that would, weigh probably highly with the other priorities of the grant, to where I think it would be a worthwhile proposal, even though it is something, because it is basically all that they do, but it checks so many of the other priorities for the program. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I know it's hard. It's hard to have a one size fits all. There's some of these criteria that are trying to steer away from certain ruts that the program got into, but we don't want to, deter other things that are really positive. So that might come out of it. So that's one of the things that maybe with the panel orientation, panelists can be aware of as they review the applications as well. But there's not really a one size fits all with some of this stuff.
Okay, yeah, and I noticed there's a lot of priorities that we're going to go over, and I guess the more priorities your project meets, the higher it probably should score. So there's a couple questions about regions. So the Arts Council manages grants in Orleans, Jefferson, and Plaquemines Parish. You have to live in one of those parishes to apply, and all types of organizations are eligible. City government, universities, each of their department is considered a different entity, private nonprofits. But if you're an individual artist, you can apply for a project with a fiscal agent. So the regions that are covered again by New Orleans, the Arts Council New Orleans, is Orleans, Jefferson, and Plaquemines. So you can apply if you're in Orleans Parish and you want to apply for a project that happens in Jefferson Parish, you can. If you're in Plaquemines, you want to do something in Orleans, you can. If you're in New Orleans and you want to do a program that reaches Orleans, Jefferson, and Plaquemines, you can. Or, so as long as you or the applicant is domiciled in the parish. Another thing that's new in the guidelines is if you are using, let's see, let me make sure I'm giving the wording, a central organization as your fiscal agent, they must be domiciled in one of those three parishes. Oh, they must be domiciled in Louisiana, actually, just in Louisiana. All right. So Ashley, you want to go over the eligibility chart?
Yes, which leads us to the eligibility chart here. So if you're an artist, like Justin said, artist, nonprofit arts organization, nonprofit organization, public and private schools, and local government agencies, you're all eligible to apply. If you're a nonprofit, you must be in good standing with the state in order to be considered eligible. Local parish and state governmental agencies such as libraries or municipalities are eligible and are not required to submit proof of nonprofit status. And if you need a fiscal agent, you can apply with a fiscal agent as well. If you're an individual artist or if you're a nonprofit organization without the legal status, you can apply with a fiscal agent. Something else that is new as well is the cash match. So you do have to show a minimum of a 50% cash match. And but you would provide that documentation whenever you do that final report.
So
that's
you're gonna
pretty
have to,
much about
that
that.
you're gonna have to provide proof that you actually raised and spent the 50%. Is that right, Erica?
Yes, that's
Mm-hmm.
right. You know, with the application, it's included in the budget, so it's just projected. But then when it comes time, if you are granted the award, the final report will show that you'll have to give your proof of that expenditure of that 50% of the match as well. Yeah.
Mhm.
And if you are an individual artist or a small nonprofit and you need a fiscal agent, please send an email to Ashley. You probably have her email. It's ashley@artsneworleans.org. And we can put you in touch with fiscal agent. The fiscal agent is probably going to want to see a summary, not just talk with you, but see a summary of your project. And different fiscal agents manage projects differently. The most that the fiscal agent can charge you to manage your project is $150. So it's a real minimal commitment. It's a big commitment of the fiscal agent, but the most they can charge you or your organization is $150.
Mhm. And so with that being said, these are some of the things that the grant won't fund. This isn't everything, this is just something, but you can reference pages 5 and 6 in the guidelines to see those lists of things of what the grant will not cover. So it's just something to consider when you're writing it out, that these are the kinds of things that the grant won't cover.
We have a question of what we mean when we say cash match. We mean actual funds received for the project and spent on the project. Like the grants can range from $2,500 to $7,500. We hope to do fewer grants and more larger grants in our region. But if you apply for a $7,500 grant, your project, the cash actually spent for the project needs to be at least $11,250. You have to raise at least a 50% cash match.
Mhm.
Yeah, is that Ruth, is that clear? Are you clear on that? Yeah. Can I use different grants I've received for the cash match? As long as if it's City of New Orleans grants, yes. If it's foundation grants, yes. You cannot use state money as a cash match. Am I right with that, Erica?
Right, that's right.
That's right. Only
Yeah,
state.
it's great if it can come from other sources that are supporting that same project. You know, that always looks good on the proposal. Doesn't have to come from the organization itself, but then, yeah, just not state funds.
What
For the
about from a
match.
university, if it's a state university?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. I might have to clarify, but I would think that, you know, if those funds were coming out of the operating, you know, it's as long as it's not duplicating the same expense. But I'll clarify that and I'll get back to
Okay.
you.
But if
Um,
it's if it's
yeah.
like from Tulane, of course, that's a private entity. That's fine. Depends on who, if
Right.
it's Dillard, depends on what what type of university or college it is.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So,
but because I mean, we let state universities apply for the grants themselves, so I would think, and if they came up with the match out of their own budget, so I think it might be okay, but I'll double check.
okay. And so that might impact other groups then if if they have another grant from the state. And you can tell guys, we're learning this new project.
Yeah.
And so we're going back and forward. But I just want to point out a few things in the eligibility list. Operating costs not directly associated with the proposed project. For example, if you have an accountant and they're spending time writing checks for the project or managing the project, that is, even though you hire them, that's direct cost for the project. Programming associated with it. Oh, hello? Did someone say something? No, okay. Programming associated with an organization regular programmatic schedule, activities that take place outside of the region where the grant is funded. For example, you get a project grant through the Arts Council, it's not going to support a project in Shreveport or in St. Tammany Parish. High school, college, or university faculty exhibitions, and travel or transportation of any kind, including transporting students to art events. So that's just some of the things, but there's a whole list of what we do not fund. So we're going to ask that you read that, like scholarship, purchase award, cash prizes, re-grants. You can't take this money and then do a re-granting program for like artists.
Mhm. Okay. Did anybody else have any other questions? Before we move on. Nope. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and move to the grant evaluation criteria. So this is listed in the guidelines on pages 7 and 8. And Joycelyn, do you mind reading off some of the,
Okay.
I can keep the presentation up?
Sure. So before I talk about the grant criteria, one thing that's new in these guidelines on the second page is the LDOA equity statement. The LDO aspires to internationally advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in every aspect of our work. This is the first time that is a statement made by the Louisiana Division of the Arts. And so the artistic merit counts for 35%. Expertise of artists involved as provider of services. And Erica, I'm not sure how many providers are in the application. Is it unlimited or do you know how many?
Yeah, I think I kept it pretty high for the number of attachments that could be uploaded for a provider of service. It's a minimum of one. That's a requirement. Even if it's just whoever is administering the program as a minimum. But then I think there is an ability to upload up to 20.
Wow, that's a lot of providers. Okay. All right.
I mean, it doesn't have to be, but I left that pretty high, I think.
Okay. Degree of innovation and artistic artistry involved in the project. Incorporation of local artists and or art form when possible. So this is new. It says local artists and of art form when possible, and or a description of how local artists and art forms will benefit. So that counts for 35%. This is new. This is a new criteria. It's been reworded. Need an impact counts for 35%. Efforts to increase accessibility and involvement of diverse population reflective of the community or engagement of new populations previously underserved by the organizations involved. And diverse means social, geography, and economic. Efforts to address a community need, gain community involvement, taking advantage of opportunity for collaboration, partnership, or demonstrating step taken at laying the groundwork for potential partnership. So this would be an organization working with another nonprofit or other entities. One thing that in the past with decentralized, if you were getting money from Orleans Parish, you couldn't do the activity in a hall or performance facility in Jefferson Parish. Now that's okay. Planning and design counts for 20%. Involvement of target audience in the planning process, risk taking, trying something new, implications of the project beyond the funding period. So, as you're writing your description, how do you plan? Is this like the first, or how do you plan to continue this project? Ability to track performance indicators and account for what may be learned from the project, as well as quantitative outcome. And admin and budget counts for 10%. Appropriate request level and use of grant funds, clarity and completeness of financial information. And one thing that's really important is as you do the budgets, if you have any questions about the budget, let us know. If you need us to look at the budget, let us know, because sometimes there's just some errors that take place on the budget page. But your grant description should tie with the budget. For example, if your project, it's talking about hiring a group of artists, or you're hiring a composer and various artists, and then you look at the budget and 80% of the money is going to admin. So, unless you talked about, unless it was an administrative type project, what's one thing the panel would
Hello, how are you?
hello?
That'd
Can
be
you-
great.
Can you mute everybody?
Let's see.
All right. So make sure you review the criteria when just developing your project description. Look at the LDO equity statement. This is the first time that this has equity is included as part of the division's focus.
Mhm. Speaking of focus, so these are some points here. It's in the guidelines page 2, where it goes into more details about what the goals are for the program and what the priorities are that they're focusing on specifically for this program. So for the grant goals, looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion, stimulating healthy competition in grant proposal submissions, increasing the level of creativity, innovation, and awareness of new trends in project development, encouraging professional artists to undertake projects that have meaningful community involvement and collaboration, and leveraging additional local and national support for the arts in Louisiana. So in order to meet those goals, the priorities here is that it must be an art project involving either dance, design, arts, folk life, literature, media, music, theater, or visual arts. It must show how the project accounts for the population of the region and promotes diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. Emphasis on innovation and artistry, risk-taking and trying something new, focusing on learning as an outcome as well as quantitative outcomes, and cross-parish partnerships between larger urban organizations and their rural counterparts or vice versa. And also
Can I
project.
just chime in?
Oh, yes. Yeah, go ahead, Erica.
Yeah, I just want to add that, those are the priorities, and every proposal, every project doesn't have to check all of those boxes. That, not every organization or project that's applying is going to be able to cover all those things. But those are the things to play up that you are incorporating at least one or maybe more. If you're incorporating those things in your project, definitely play them up in your proposal and your application narrative.
Mhm.
And the last priority is project that have a trajectory to continue to enhance the region beyond the funding period.
Okay. So as far as the application process goes, it is through Submittable. I'm sure some of you guys are familiar with Submittable. If you used it before, you probably already have an account. So you would just sign in or log in into your account to apply for the grant. If you don't have an account already, you would have to go ahead and set up. It is very user friendly, so you shouldn't have any issues with creating a new account and applying. But if you do have any problems, definitely reach out to us, or just specific problems with the website. There is a Submittable customer service number that is very helpful that can help you if you're having issues.
So the deadline is August 31st. You should probably start working on your project as soon as possible. I would plan to get my project in at least a few days prior to the deadline, because your computer may crash, you may lose internet. If you're waiting until the last, the Arts Council has used Submittable for many years, and I can tell you, after the deadline, every year we would get 10 or even more emails saying, I missed the deadline, I did the application, I just couldn't submit it. But once the application is closed, it's closed. If you want the Arts Council staff, if you want Ashley to help review your application, you can, you can download, you can save your application and download as a PDF and share it with Ashley so she can look at it. We are there to help people develop projects. Also, if you're looking for artists or you're looking for different types of nonprofit arts organizations, we know a lot of the groups that are domiciled in the region, so you can contact us, if you're looking for space, whatever you need, just please let us know, and we're there to work with you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is a little bit of how the panel process goes. The panels, they're going to be a makeup of community members with different backgrounds that reflects the region's ethnic, demographic, and geographic diversity, in addition to having the artistic and administrative expertise. We're going to have three groups of panels. So one is it's going to be performances, theater, dance, music, multidisciplinary. Then the second group is going to be visual, folk life, literature, festival, design, and media. And then the third group is going to be arts education. So there is policies in place to avoid conflict of interest, such as none of the panelists can't apply for the grant. So if they have plans for applying for the grant, then it can't be a panelist. So, but they are going to review the applications all online and score them there, make their recommendations. And following the review process, we're going to meet with them to discuss the results. And the applicants, such as you guys, are going to be invited to join the meetings. We're still trying to solidify the meetings, but you guys will be open to joining. Did you have anything extra to say on that, Joycelyn?
Mm-hmm. No, just that we're not sure. We were planning to have the panels take place in person, at this point, because of the COVID, the numbers are going back up, and the mayor in New Orleans, because we would probably doing in New Orleans, may enforce a mask mandate. She has made a mask recommendation. As I look and listen to the news around the country, there's a lot of indoor mask mandates. If that's the case, we'd probably have the panels online, because it's very difficult to do review panels when voices are muffled with mask wearing.
Mhm. So what happens if you get awarded? More information on this is in the guidelines on pages 9 through 11. But if you do get selected and awarded the grant, there's going to be an award letter sent out to you. And there's also going to be a contract that you'll have to sign and complete as well. Something that's very important to note, especially when you're writing out your proposals and deciding on what project you're trying to get funded, is that after we receive your contract, you're going to receive 75% of the grant funds. However, you do need to spend the 100% of it, and then you would be reimbursed the 25%. So if at any point anything changes as far as what you were planning on doing with the grant funds on your project, you'll contact me to submit those changes. Any project that you have there, you would be required to invite individuals responsible for funding the project, such as representatives of the state, Arts Council staff, LDOA staff, local representatives. You would also include official logos of the Office of Cultural Development and also the National Endowment of the Arts in all publicity, advertisement, and programs. So any kind of advertising or publicities that you have regarding the project, whether it's on the website, newsletter, social media, things like that, you'll have to just make sure that you are including those official logos next to each other. There's more information on there because there's also a credit line that you would include in there as well. And then after the grant activity period is up, you'll have a final report that you would have to submit. So it's also going to be important during your grant activity period to just keep track of any activities related to it, the financial information such as receipts and invoices, check copies, things like that. And after you submit that final report along with the documentation, then you would receive the remaining 25% of the grant funds.
And also in the guidelines on page 5 is a link to the Louisiana Secretary of State page, and you can check to make certain that you are in good standing prior to submission of your application. If we check and you're not in, or when we check, if you're not in good standing, your application would not be presented to the panel.
Mm-hmm. Did anybody have any questions so far? I'm gonna make sure we catch.
All right. Are organizations that receive an LDOA general operating grant eligible to apply for this grant? Yes, definitely. You can get funding from both sources. Considered for eligibility, what's considered advocacy efforts? Advocacy efforts would be trying to influence state legislators to but you can never use grant funds for advocacy efforts unless it's from a private foundation. So advocacy would be working with local city officials or state officials, trying to get them to vote one way or the other on an issue. This grant is for arts projects and services. It's not for advocacy. Did I answer your question, Hannah?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of curious. I have an idea to do a project that's about environmental justice and working with a community group that's trying to stop a specific petrochemical project, like would working on that be considered advocacy?
Well, we would be interested in the arts component of that project, not not the political components of the project. If you understand what I'm saying, it wouldn't be for, you know, like if you're doing, well, for example, you couldn't do this in Cancer Alley because we're not, that's not a parish we're domiciled in. But for an organization to do an outdoor theater project, and the focus of the theater is environmental justice, and, you know, it's written about, you know, inequities or whatever. That's, you know, that's always been the focus of art projects, you know, inequity in different areas. So as long as it's focused on the arts component of the project, I think it would be fine. All right, so we have another question. Let's see. Okay, if you're frugal with your word count, but the answer the good. So if you're frugal with your word count, but answer the grant question, will you be graded down? So I guess the question is, how much, you know, if the question limits it to 1,000 words and you answer the question in 100 words, I don't think you'll really have answered the question. I think if you are a frugal person, you know, if you're not wordy, you probably would want to talk to Ashley to make sure you answered all of the questions. You want to give the panel list enough information to tell them why your project is important. Who is it impacting? What's the need for the project? How will it be, you know, what's the structure of the project? You know, in a project design, you may want to, you know, have your timeline. You want to give them enough information so they can, you know, you're trying to get them to have a relationship with you, you know who you are, know why the project is important. Like if you're doing something about the environment, yes, that's a very, you know, that's on the top of everybody's mind worldwide. If you're doing something and it's involving diverse populations, that's another, you know, focus. If you're doing a project that will help artists, for example, if you're doing an exhibition project, and, you know, I would think you would have to have a selection process, you know, as part of the or, you know, you would probably have it open to a call, and then you would have a panel. You know, I don't know if the panel would want to support an exhibition where the artists have already been selected, but maybe they would if you talk about the selection process as part of the design of the project. Let's see. So if I live in Orleans Parish, can I do a project as an individual artist in St. James Parish, as long as my fiscal agent is in Region 3? So if you live in Orleans Parish and you want to do a project in St. James Parish, you need to get a St. James applicant or organization to apply to bring you in. So like if you wanted to do something in Shreveport, you're a theater artist, you would have to hook up with a group that's domiciled in Shreveport. So they want to bring in an artist from New Orleans or Jefferson's or Plaquemines. So you can only apply in the parish in which you live or the organization is domiciled. All right, are there any other questions? And let me know if I if I answered the questions. So you can stop the screen share now if that was the presentation, Ashley. So are there any other, things you guys want to discuss? If you find you have questions later, please email Ashley. Uh, Again, Ashley is going to be available to review applications. It is going to be a competitive process. I am hoping that in our region, we make larger grants, because historically grants through the decentralized program was only $2,500. And I was trying to get the division to set the grants at like $5,000. They told me no. I was like, come on, let's just set them at 5,000. People could design a project for $5,000. They listened to me, but then they said no. So, so I'm hoping that we fund larger grants and fewer grants. So someone has a question about
It's
collaboration.
me.
Okay.
Hi, Jocelyn.
Hey, Amy.
Hi. I have a question about collaboration, because if we were to write a grant about something that we're starting to work on with Jefferson Parks and Rec, I work for Jefferson Performing Arts Society, and we're starting to talk with them about collaborating on some of their after-school programs and their enrichment programs. The reason we wanted to look into grants for that is just to have more people participate, basically, because they can do some for free, but they can't do all of them. So to pay some of the teaching artists and all that. But if we were to write that, even though they're our collaborator, do they send in their own, or do they get some of the money? Or can it be a collaboration where we're still asking for all the money? You know what I mean?
So someone's going to have to be the applicant, and that probably be your organization. If you're talking
Right.
about Jefferson Performing Arts Society.
Yes, yeah, we would be
So
the applicant.
they would also apply probably for a different project, because
Okay.
they have a budget of about, last I checked, well, prior to COVID, was like $2 million. So they'll probably apply for their project.
Okay.
So Erica, how, and I don't know if yours is arts education and theirs is performance, or theirs may be arts education. So if we have a lot of collaborative projects, what should we tell the panel? Or, I mean, as long as there are various applicants, like say Amy's organization. What's your organization, Amy?
I'm with JPAS, with Jefferson Performing Arts Society, but we were just, this might not necessarily be what we do, but
Okay.
because we started talking with Parks and Rec, like it would be Jefferson Parks and Rec, which technically, I guess they're city government, so it's not that they wouldn't need and love the money too, but if we're writing the application and name them as a partner, and that's the thrust, hi, that's my cat, as the thrust of the grant, is it expected that some of the monies from that grant goes to these partners? Do they need to have anything to really do in the grant? You know what I mean?
Well, no, I mean, it's okay. Erica, you want to answer that?
Well, just the way that the application is structured, it's honing in on the project. So as if it's like you're applying for the project, not
right.
which
Okay.
organization.
Right. So the
And
money's going
then-
to the artist, so it doesn't really matter if we name the organizations, it's not as though.
But then there is a line for applicants. So you do kind of have to choose which organization is the applicant. They're going to be the ones to meet the criteria to take in the money. And then whoever's the partner could serve as a provider of service. And then you would maybe have an agreement of what share of the grant funds are going to go to them.
Okay, I can see that. I don't have a sense.
What do you think? Joyce,
Yeah,
what do you think about that structure?
Wait, can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Well, the way that it's set up in the application is it's really focusing on what the project is. So it's not focusing on which organizations are applying, whether they're applying more than once. It's which projects are being funded. And so then, but there is a line for the applicant where there would have to be an organization that qualifies as the applicant to receive the grant money. And then if there are partnerships, beyond just the one organization that are collaborating for that project, there has to be a decision about who's the main applicant and then who's a provider of service. Mm-hmm. Possibly that's, but if you're saying different partnering organizations could apply separately, it would just it would have to be clear that they're separate projects. 'Cause
Correct.
it wouldn't be more than one, yeah, so.
Yeah, like, so the Jefferson, like the city of Jefferson couldn't apply for the same, with the partnership with JPAS, and then JPS applies for the same project with the city.
Yeah, okay,
But JPAS at the same time can do be a partner with many applicants, but they can only apply for one application. So if, say, the New Orleans Ballet Association was applying for a partnership with JPAS and the New Orleans Ballet Association was the lead applicant, that would be fine, but it would be for a different project.
so
Mhm.
yeah, it's project based. I guess the other part of the question too is does it enhance our application to have a partnership? Does that weigh heavily, or does, you know, how heavily are these collaborations weighed?
Well, let's see, it's one of A through G. So one under priorities, it's one of 7. So I would only do a partnership if that is something your organization was planning to do anyway. I would
Okay.
never apply for a new project to get grant money because the grants are too small to really
Yeah,
support the
right.
projects.
Gotcha, yeah,
So it has to be something you want to do. And I see Lisa Conescu is on the phone. And so that organization is in Jefferson Parish. It's Jefferson Scholars for Dollars. And they would apply for quote, scholarships to send kids to different activities. And I see scholarships aren't, but I'm not sure that's the type of scholarship these guidelines are talking about. They're talking about like educational scholarships, correct, Erica? Like they have a process where they involve various schools, and the schools select kids that would benefit from going to arts projects over the summer. And these are usually paid activities that the kids cannot usually afford. So that would be still
Yeah.
eligible. Okay.
Yeah, I would just maybe word that differently than scholarship, more like a stipend or something
Okay.
where it's it's inclusive in the project. It's not a separate scholarship for something different. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Okay. All right. So are there any other questions? I'm so glad to see so many people and that so many people are interested in these grants. Hopefully they can be larger grants rather than smaller grants, because we historically, our grants were only $2,500. If you're applying for the 7,500, your project has to be at least $11,250. All right. And, you know, it's about projects that impact the community and reach diverse populations, and, you know, and they have to be arts projects. So we're excited that now we have one pot of money. Many years ago, we used to have over $500,000 that went through the Arts Council for these parishes. And now we're going to have $122,997 for all the projects.
Mhm.
So if you apply for a project and you get less, you'll be able to do a modification when you submit your contract. Is that correct, Sarah? Erica?
Yeah, there'll still be that option if you
Okay.
don't get funded for the amount you requested, but you do get funded, you can amend your scope.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Any other comments, thoughts?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Becca. All right. Well,
Thank
you
you,
guys
guys.
take care and reach out to Ashley if you have any other questions.
Thank you, Joycelyn and Ashley. Everyone's in good hands there.
All right. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.